This time on the Random Junk channel, we are working on a Lemax jungle carousel. So, the reason it's a jungle carousel, if you've never seen or have this one, is you got a horse, you got a seahorse, you got a tortoise or a turtle, you have a lion, you have a bird, you have a chair, you have a rhino, and you have what looks like a griffin. And then you have another regular horse, and another regular horse, and another regular horse. So the inner track's pretty much as regular horses except for a rhino. But this doesn't work at all. Some of these characters are spun backwards. I don't know what's going on. So it's plugged in. I did check the power supply. And it is putting out 5.5 volts. It's a 4.5 volt unit, but it's always got over. So normally if you can get it to rotate, it might start working, but this thing doesn't move at all. Yeah. I'm going to go with it's got a bad motor or something else is burned on the inside. You can check the switch. 99.9% of the time it's never the switch. Okay, so careful of the flags. I don't think they come out. Oh, they're glued in. On the bottom, we have 3 screws in the center, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 6 pads that have screws underneath them. I'm going to pop the center out real quick just to see what's in there. Probably the motor. Or it's the part that holds the hub. We're going to find out here in just a second. Ah, no, yeah, all that does is hold the center hub in. So, pull these out. So, now we have to pull out the 6 pads and get to the screws underneath those. Two more. That's it. I don't see a date on the bottom of this one. Generally there's a date on a lot of these, but it just says Lemax made in China. Might have the date on the box. Let's see if the electric will work. Okay, so all the screws are now out. I'm just getting them out of the plastic so we don't get them lost. There we go. There we go. It's just a really tight fit and really short wires. I'm going to unplug the motor and see if we can get lights and sound to come back. The motor looks like it goes right here. Yep, that's the motor. Okay. I'll try and show you inside here in a second. Let's just see if that's the cause. There we go. So it's got a shorted motor, which is pretty typical for Lemax. These other wires are going to cause me a problem that are in my way. Where do they go? They are soldered to the board, of course. Alright, well, let's see if we can rotate it. So, here's the circuit board. Kind of buried a little bit. There we go. So, the P1 is your motor. This blue and red wire are the controls. There's a light controller up here that does the flash pattern. That's what this is, and there's not any slack on this wire, and it's soldered to the bottom. So I just popped the motor wire right here, which is the P1. This is your power from your plug right here. I can't read you the number because it's covered. Here's your controller. This, the wheel. And then this guy here that has the gray and red wire is your speaker. So that is bad. So let's take it apart. You're going to have to take the 3 screws out, and we shouldn't have to take apart the gear box itself because the one screw is actually outside of the gearbox. A lot of them, this cover covers this screw over here. Luckily on this specific one it does not. That lets us get to the bottom, so we'll take the belt off. And then we get those 2 screws out. If you watched other videos, you'll know that you need to be careful with these 2 screws. Try not to lose them because, well, they're not easily replaced. Sometimes when you buy a motor kit, it will come with the screws. Most places don't ship the motor screws with the motor. So, and they're little specialty screws. And it's all covered in grease, which is typical. It's usually what causes these to short out. Sometimes the fingers in the back will just fold over from heat and use, but most of the time it's because there's too much grease on this. The motor shouldn't have grease, just the gearbox. I'm going to try and feed some slack up because when we solder the new motor in, I need slack. Oh, there we go. Let's get a motor. Okay, so this is the motor they use, and it's a RF 300C 11440. RF 300C is the type of motor, and 11440 is the speed. Sometimes they say RF 300CA, sometimes they say SRF 300CA. They're all the same, it's just different part numbers from different manufacturers. But this is the motor you need, and the reason you see me cut these wires so close to the old motor is because they're really short. So, get my soldering iron warmed up. We're going to get out some heat shrink. And just taking a red and then cutting it in half because of its length and then just sliding it down on the wires. Color to me doesn't matter. Some people want the red to red, the black to black. As long as it's protected, color doesn't matter. And now we're gonna strip a little more off than what they gave me from the factory on the motor. And then we're going to strip some off here. On the bottom of this circuit board, you have the brains. So you have the blob chip and all the other components. On the top, you only have, well, the blob chip's right here, sorry, but you have all the small components. The blob chip's right here. You have your smoothing capacitor for the motor right there, and then everything else is on the bottom. This circuit board has got a lot of glue holding it in, which is good. It means it won't bounce around. Sometimes I only put a little dollop of glue, and then the glue dries out, and a little dollop's not strong enough to hold it, and your circuit board bounces around. This thing has got a huge amount of glue around it, and they also have a plastic staked on diagonal corners. You definitely don't want this board bouncing around, so this one was built decently. There we go. That's the red one. So this is a first video for you. Basically, if you have a Lemax, especially Lemax, like 99% of the time, if it completely dies on you, it's usually the motor. If you can open it up and either unplug the motor if it has a plug, or cut one of these two wires and the lights and sound come back, you need to replace your motor. Reason being is basically, and it's not 100% correct, but electricity takes the least path of resistance. So a shorted motor is the least path of resistance, so it's going to try and go that direction. The reason it's not quite correct is because there's still electricity going through all paths. It's just the majority of electricity is going through the least path of resistance. It's kind of like water. You make tunnels in your yard and spray with water. The bigger tunnel will get the majority of the water, but the small ones will still get water in it. So now I'm just slipping the heat shrink over. And so. Now you can heat it up with a heat gun. I usually just use a lighter because it takes less time. Let's turn on my soldering iron. Just got a ceiling fan on, so I gotta shield the flame from the fan so it doesn't keep blowing out my lighter. So now we just reverse the assembly. What I'm doing is making sure that it's centered, because the screw holes aren't always centered. So I'm making sure we're in the right hole. There we go. examining it to make sure it's not greasy. Put the pulley on to where it lines up with the belt. So the two pulleys line up so the belt's not off at an angle. That increases belt wear and short life expectancy. Make sure the belt's not dog-legged, belt straight. And now we put this back together. Let's pull the slack back through as we reassemble that. So you want to make sure the slack is on the outsides of the tracks like they had it, and that's so it doesn't get caught in the up and down mechanisms. And when you put it back together, you have to make sure you rotate all your characters to face in the same direction. That's usually the hardest part, especially when there's a double row. So there's an inner row and an outer row, and when you get one row done, the other row you have one that reverses. It's kind of annoying, but it is nature of a carousel. Except on the Mr. Christmas ones. Some of the Mr. Christmas ones, the bars are pinned, which means the bars cannot rotate. But that's why they're more expensive. It's because they take into consideration that things can turn. So they make it so things can't turn. There you go. So make them snug, but not so tight that you break them. We're going to plug it in. There it goes. Like that. And still turned on. There we go. Now, alright. Got the motor wire. I fed it right through the blue and the red wires, so we gotta reverse that. Now let's try and push some of the slack back up inside the barrel. And the rest of the slack right here. Right here. There we go. So you do need to remove all the screws to work on this, just so you know. Okay, so we got our screws back where they need to go. This can only go back together one way, which should be obvious with the steps, but just in case, because the center screws, they're not in alignment, so that means they only fit in their respective holes. They're dog-legged intentionally, so you can't screw it up. So this is the hard part. Now we need to get her back together. So all the pins need to drop onto their respective tracks, which is quite annoying. That's the nature of a carousel. Now, you know what? I have a much better idea. I'm not going to fight with it. I can show you a trick. Since it came with the package. The last carousel I didn't come with the package, so I couldn't use the trick. So you take your top. We're going to unplug this blue and red wire. This plug's supposed to be up inside the barrel. It came out, which is good. So we're going to plug it. The reason I'm going to do this is because if you notice, all the characters are not in their respective holes. So we're going to turn it upside down. And we're going to put each character into their groove. easier than it sounds, though, because the two characters that are side by side are hitting each other, and they don't want to drop in. Problem is they're dropping in 90 degrees out. There we go. There we go. That one's good. Hey, that one's missing this little guide. So was that one. Interesting. That's not something I have. I don't see it inside the carousel. I'll double check in a second once I get all these characters facing the right way. This one has nothing, so there's no... Oh, these don't have the guides because those are stabilizer bars, so never mind. Let's see, this one's got to turn to there. This one's one of the ones that's facing backwards, so we're going to turn it all the way around. And we've got to put the bird in. Too far. Alright, so all the characters are now aligned. So with it upside down, you can place this back into the box, like so, and then you just have to do this upside down. So then you take this, and we go, the stairs are over there, so we're gonna plug this in. That's your light wire. We're going to feed all the slack back down the center as we put the top on. Get down to where my eyes are parallel with the unit. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to use, let's see if these might work. Something to reach in here and push the plug back inside. There we go. Now, there we go. So if you have your box top, just flip it upside down, and what that'll do is it'll keep the characters from getting in the way, getting stuck on their own track, and keep them from falling out. And it makes the ears line up, and you can put the screws in because you have gravity helping you. A lot of hands, as you can tell. A lot of benefits. Now when you put it together, it does kind of clip in. The clips is the standoffs are fitting into these outer 6 holes because they have a recess in them. And that's what the clipping noise is when you push it back together, or that noise when I took it apart. Get the hot glue out for the feet. Get it warmed up. I just put a small dab and then I put the feet back in. You don't want a lot, and I don't recommend super glue. Super glue makes it pretty permanent, and that's pretty bad if you have to take it apart. Motors don't last forever, belts don't last forever, gears don't last forever. So I'm just making sure these all have about the same tension, since I don't want them to cause a problem. Now we put the 3 center ones in. What the centers one do is they stabilize the center hub, since it's a free-floating hub, meaning that there's no shaft that goes down the center of them. If you watch Mr. Christmas repairs that I've done, there's a big metal arm or shaft that goes from the bottom of the unit all the way to the top, where the screw is under the big top or the top of the carousel. That's what stabilizes the drum. On the Lemax, these 3 screws is what stabilizes the drum. So they're very important. They're actually more important than the outer ones, because the bottom ring, as long as it's down, can stay centered and work. These come out, the whole thing can wobble and break stuff. So these are your important screws. But you do have to take all 9 out to work on this. Now when I got it, you can see there's glue right there. The railing was already broken. To be honest with you, working on the Lemax carousels, their railing is super fragile and it's notorious for breaking. A dab of super glue will fix it. It's just nature of the beast, because their railing is so small. And it's really easy to get it caught on your finger. Perfect. So, let me turn off some lights here, show it to you. Then I'm going to glue the feet in and call it good. Relatively easy, less than 30 minutes. Once I get the lights turned down. So there's no lights over here. And that's because it's just the entrance to reflect to the big top. And there you go. Lights are coming back. The green looks a lot better on the camera than in person. The shade is more ruby-esque, or not ruby, emerald on the camera than what you see here. So, as far as this piece goes, it's a lot easier if you have the top, which is also, or the box, which is also good. And then, here we go. It's not too hard to work on. It's pretty, oh, did the battery die? Nope. It was heating up and now it stopped. There we go. So as far as this goes, it's a low moderate difficulty. You can do this at home. Just remove the pads and then just hot glue them back in. Remove the 9 screws, so the 6 outer, 3 inner. And then slowly put your finger around this lip here to pop the top, because what you're doing is see how these are recessed? They're recessed on the inside, and that's what's holding it in place. Careful, because you saw how short the wires were, where I had to tip it and get it to come out of the barrel. It is what it is. Then unplug your motor, and if your lights and sound come back, you need a motor. And you saw it's an RF300C. You saw also the RF300CA, the SRF300C, the RF300F. SRF300CA, but you want to make sure you get an 11,440 RPM, or 11,400 RPM works too. It sounds extremely fast, but you gotta remember the motor's spinning that fast, not the gears. The gears reduce the speed and increase the torque. If you get like an 8,000 RPM one, it's going to spin really slow. If you get a 20,000 RPM one, it's going to spin a little bit faster. but 99% of all Lemax is 11,400 RPM or 11,440. I think the 40 RPM doesn't make a difference. I think it's just whatever the motor company makes that they can buy a boatload of, a literal boatload. So as far as it goes, it's 40 RPMs is a big deal. 400 RPMs is a big deal. Thousands of RPMs is a bigger deal. But anyway, pretty simple. I'll try and link to the motors. Sometimes they're getting hard to find because they're so common. Companies are literally running out of them and they're always back ordered. The cheapest place I find them is eBay, but you're talking 4 to 6 weeks to get them because they come from China. Amazon, they're more expensive, but they usually have them in a local warehouse. So it's how fast you want to fix it. I usually buy them on eBay. I only have 4 motors left, so I'll put an order in. So that way in 4 weeks I'll get a bag. I usually order them 20 to 25 at a time, sometimes 30. That way I can fix these and not have to let them sit around waiting for something to come in to repair them. But anyhow, that is the Lemax Jungle Carousel repair. This one's pretty basic. All the gears that are in here are replaceable with the gear kits I linked to, or from Happy Holiday Parts for the specialty Impossible gear. It's almost warm. And the belt, skull crane, or a generic kit from Amazon works fine. LEDs, hopefully they never burn out because of how they have them in the track around the edges. They're surface mount and they're much harder to repair. But everything technically can be repaired except for the circuit board. So other than that, that takes care of this one. So until the next one, thanks for watching. I'm sure you all know how to put on the little rubber feet. But let's see, is it warm enough? As I was going to show you how to do one, but it's not hot enough yet. It's getting there. But all I do is put a small drop on the edge and then push it in. I don't want to fill the screw in. I just want it to touch the edge. Except it's still not. There's a little drop, and then pull the snot rings off. And that's it. Just go around, call it good. If you have to use hot glue or super glue, just a very small drop on the edge. You don't want it in that screw. Rubber contact cement works too. So if you have that lying around. I used to. I don't anymore. Elmer's glue, it works, but it doesn't work as long. All right. Thanks for watching.